The metal box snapped open on the counter of Gate 14B, and for exactly 3 seconds, nobody in the United States Air Force terminal at Joint Base Andrews said a word. Then Captain Derek Moss laughed. It was the kind of laugh that carries, the kind a man produces when he is very young, very certain of his rank, and very sure the woman standing across from him is nobody worth worrying about. He had the clean jaw and pressed uniform of someone who had never waited in line for anything in his life. And she, the one he was laughing at, was a short woman in faded jeans and a gray cardigan, her silver hair pulled back with the kind of plastic clip you find in drugstore bins. She looked by every visible measure like someone's grandmother who had wandered into the wrong terminal. She closed the box quietly, and that closing, that one slow, deliberate click, is where the story really begins. Her name was Ruth Mercer. She was 58 years old. She was holding a cup of black coffee she had not yet had a chance to drink, and she was standing in the officers' waiting lounge at Gate 14B because her connecting flight to San Diego had been delayed by weather for the 3rd morning in a row. She had been up since 4. Her left knee ached the way it always did in low-pressure systems. There was a small scar below her right ear, curved like a parenthesis, that she had stopped explaining to people decades ago. The lounge was full, a Friday morning crowd of uniforms, young captains, a few majors, 2 colonels talking near the window about golf, an enlisted airman behind the coffee station, a civilian contractor with a lanyard and a donut. Everyone in that room had looked at Ruth Mercer at least once and made the same invisible decision. She did not belong there. Captain Moss had arrived 17 minutes ago with the particular energy of a man who treats every room like a stage. He was 29, newly promoted, stationed at Andrews on a rotation from Nellis. He had a silver star he had earned legitimately, at 26, in circumstances that genuinely required courage. And this is important to understand, because the worst kind of arrogance is the kind built on a foundation of real achievement. He was not nothing. He had simply decided that being something meant other people were less. He had spotted Ruth at the coffee counter, where she was pouring a cup with the calm efficiency of someone who had made coffee in conditions far worse than a climate-controlled lounge. And something about the way she stood there, unhurried, unimpressed, unbothered, had irritated him in a way he could not quite name. "Ma'am." He had said it with the specific softness of a command dressed as courtesy. "Could you get me a cup?" 2 sugars. Ruth had looked at him, not sharply, just fully. The way a person looks when they are deciding whether to say something. She poured him the cup. She handed it over without a word, and that should have been the end of it. But Captain Moss was the kind of man who mistakes a person's patience for their ceiling. He took the cup, glanced at the metal box she had set on the counter to free her hands, and made a face. That small, dismissive compression of the lips that people use when they are performing contempt for an audience. "What's this? Someone give you a grandfather's decorations to carry?" He picked up the box without asking, turned it over. "Bronze Star." "Huh." He set it down the way you set down something that doesn't belong to you, and he laughed. Ruth's hands were still on the counter. Her breath moved in, moved out. Steady. She picked up the box and put it back in her canvas bag. The airman behind the coffee station had gone very still. A major near the window had turned slightly, the way people do when their peripheral vision catches something that their politeness won't let them look at directly. "Relax, Grandma." Moss took a sip of the coffee. "Just making conversation." She looked at him again. "I know." She picked up her own cup and walked to a chair by the window, the one nearest the gray morning light, and she sat down and she opened a paperback book, a battered copy of a Patrick O'Brian novel, the spine cracked to pieces. And she began to read. The room breathed again. Conversations resumed. The contractor took another donut, but there were seeds in that silence that none of them could see yet. The delay stretched another 40 minutes. Rain tracked sideways across the terminal windows. The coffee grew cold on side tables. Two of the young captains were playing something on their phones. The two colonels had moved on to complaining about acquisition timelines. The airman behind the counter, his name tag read Osorio, was restacking cups and watching the door with the eyes of someone waiting for a shift change. Ruth read her book. She did not look up. She turned pages at a pace that suggested she had read the book before and was visiting it the way you visit a place you love, for the specific sensation of return. Moss was bored. Bored men with audiences look for something to do. He wandered to the window, wandered back, checked his phone twice, and then, in the way that boredom and unexamined pride collaborate, he ended up near Ruth's chair again. "What do you actually do?" The question had a casual cruelty to it, the word actually doing all the weight. "Civilian contractor? DoD spouse?" Ruth's thumb held her place in the book. "I fly." She turned the page, kept reading. Moss smiled. "Commercial?" A beat. She did not answer. "Right." He looked around the room to share his amusement. "Well, the weather should clear in an hour. Make sure you're back before boarding. Wouldn't want you to get confused about which gate." He said it just loud enough. And the room, this is the part that matters, the room let it happen. Because rooms do that. Rooms full of rank and familiarity and group identity let small cruelties pass because calling them out requires a kind of social courage that is expensive before breakfast. Ruth closed her book. She looked at him with those steady gray eyes that had been steadily not reacting since the whole thing started, and for a moment something moved across her face. Not anger. Closer to a decision. But before she could say or do or be anything at all, the lounge door opened. The man who walked in was a bear of a figure in a Navy service dress blue uniform. 4 stars on his shoulders. The kind of face that has looked at hard things without flinching until the face itself became hard. He was 63, gray at the temples, broad in the chest, and he walked with the slight hitch of a man who has broken something structural in his body and simply decided to continue anyway. He stopped inside the doorway. He scanned the room. And when his eyes landed on the woman in the gray cardigan sitting by the window with the Patrick O'Brian novel, something happened to his face that was difficult to name exactly. A complicated opening, like a door in a house that hasn't been unlocked in years. He walked directly to her. The two colonels near the window had already come to attention. Moss, to his credit, straightened up with the automatic reflex of a man who recognizes 4 stars. The Admiral didn't look at any of them.